Right now, millions of people are reading on phones, on signs, on medicine bottles and restaurant menus. We don't even think about it. But for hundreds of years, if you were blind, you were locked out of language entirely. No system existed that let a blind person read on their own. And write? Impossible. Then, a 3-year-old boy in a small French village had a terrible accident. And over the next 12 years, he built a solution out of dots. He was 15 years old when he finished it, and almost nobody believed him. Louis Braille was born in 1809, a small village, a simple life. His father was the local saddler. He made harnesses, repaired leather, worked with his hands. Louis grew up in that workshop, and one afternoon, when he was 3 years old, he picked up one of his father's tools, an awl, a sharp, pointed spike used to pierce leather. No one knows exactly what happened next. The awl slipped. It struck him in the eye. In the days before antibiotics, a wound like that was catastrophic. The infection spread, first one eye, then the other. Within weeks, Louis Braille was completely blind. He was 3 years old. He would never see again. Here's where the story could have ended. In the early 1800s, blind children were considered uneducable. Most ended up begging. The idea of a blind person becoming a scholar or a teacher was almost unthinkable. But Louis's parents refused to accept that. His father taught him to navigate the village with a cane. His teachers were astonished by his memory. He couldn't see the lessons, so he memorized them, every word. In 1819, at age 10, Louis won a scholarship to the Royal Institute for Blind Youth in Paris, one of the only schools for blind children in the world. They had a reading system there, books with large raised Roman letters. Students traced them with their fingers, but it was brutally slow, impossibly expensive, and, most importantly, it could not be written. A blind student could read someone else's words, but they could never write their own. Louis found this completely unacceptable. The breakthrough came from an unlikely place, the military. In 1821, a French army captain named Charles Barbier visited the institute. He demonstrated a system he'd built for soldiers. He called it night writing. Raised dots and dashes pressed into thick paper. A code soldiers could read in complete darkness. No light, no noise, no risk. The military had rejected it as too complicated, but 12-year-old Louis Braille saw something they'd missed. Raised dots, not letters. Letters are complex shapes, hard to trace fast. Dots are simple. Louis took Barbier's system apart and rebuilt it from scratch. He worked on it obsessively, in the evenings, during breaks, in stolen minutes wherever he could find them. He simplified the patterns, organized them into a logical code, added symbols for music, for mathematics. In 1824, Louis Braille was 15 years old, and he was finished. A 6-dot cell, 2 columns, 3 rows, capable of representing every letter, every punctuation mark, every number. He had built a door out of dots. And then the world ignored him. The Royal Institute didn't adopt the system. The director was cautiously supportive, but his successor was actively hostile. He reportedly banned Braille from being used at the school, the very school where Louis now taught. Think about that. The man who invented the system was a teacher at the institution that refused to use it. Louis kept going. He taught, he refined. He demonstrated his system to anyone who would listen. His students loved it. Blind people who encountered it could learn to read and write in weeks, compared to the years required by the old method. But the sighted administrators of blind education largely refused to accept a system invented by a blind person. Louis Braille never saw his system officially adopted. He died of tuberculosis in 1852. He was 43 years old. 2 years after his death, the Royal Institute finally adopted the Braille system. Within decades, it had spread across the world. Today, Braille exists in over 130 languages. It appears on banknotes, menus, medicine bottles, and the buttons of every lift you've ever stepped into. And the system itself? The 6-dot cell Louis designed at 15 years old has never been fundamentally changed, not updated, not replaced. in 200 years, essentially perfect. In 1952, a century after his death, France moved his remains to the Panthéon, the mausoleum reserved for France's greatest citizens. But his hands were kept in a separate memorial. In his home village of Coupvray, where a 3-year-old boy once picked up the wrong tool and accidentally changed the world. Louis Braille's story isn't really about disability. It's about a child who lost something devastating and used that loss to understand something no one else could. He knew what it felt like to be locked out of language. So he built a door. He was 15 when he built it, and he spent the rest of his life trying to give it away, even when the world wasn't ready to take it. Every time someone reads a Braille sign, learns from a Braille textbook, or navigates the world through the tips of their fingers, they're carrying a 15-year-old boy's idea with them. Not bad for a child from a small village in France. That was episode 3 of the History Hunters Club. Next episode, we travel to 1980s Pakistan. A child sold into slavery at the age of 4, who escaped, and then spent his short life freeing thousands of others. It's a difficult story, but it's one you need to hear. Subscribe so you don't miss it.